Hello. Today we're discussing the chapter Chayei Sara, about burial basically of Sarah and the last years of Abraham's life. So let's get to it. Year is 2048 of Jewish calendar. So in other words, it's 3,729 years ago, since now is year 5,777. Sarah dies at the age of 127. Apparently the circumstances of her death were described in the previous parsha. She couldn't handle, initially she was absolutely terrified of the prospect that Abraham will sacrifice their precious son Isaac, and then when she learns that everything is fine and they're coming back and Isaac is alive and well and everything is fine, this is when the happiness she couldn't handle, and she probably had a heart attack, and as a consequence she passed away. Sarah passed away at the age of 127 and buried in the cave of Machpelah. It's in Hebron, which Abraham purchased that cave from Ephron the Hittite for 400 silver shekels, which at that time was an absolutely astronomical amount of money, and we will come to that in a few minutes. Then we see Abraham instructing his faithful servant Eliezer to swear basically that he will fulfill the obligation which Abraham puts on him, and this is to go to Canaan and find a wife for Isaac. Eliezer is given a lot of money and wealth and jewelry and expensive items, as well as papers which testify to the fact that Abraham passed all of his wealth, everything what he has got, to Isaac, and Isaac is basically the son for whom Eliezer is looking to find a wife. This was done in order to convince the selected woman eventually and her family that she should follow Eliezer and get back to Abraham and to Isaac, where they were residing, and get married. It's a difficult task. Eliezer had, I'm sure Eliezer had a lot of emotions associated with it. First of all, we know that Eliezer had an eligible daughter as well, whom he wouldn't mind to get married to Isaac. However, Abraham clearly stated to him, because Eliezer is from the tribe of Canaan, who was cursed by Noah, and that's why somebody like Isaac cannot marry his daughter. So Eliezer knew that. And on the other hand, how do you find a suitable young lady? So what Eliezer does is, first of all, he covers the distance from Hittite place, from Hebron to Haran, in a very short period of time, in one day, which is a miracle in itself. And then on the outskirts of Haran, when he sees a well where the shepherds basically water their flock and get water and all of this, and near the well he prays, and he prays to Hashem, to God, to conduct a test, to highlight to him which one is the eligible lady. How to do that? He says that, I will ask a young lady for a drink when she will come over to pick up water. And if she gives me a drink and says to me that I will water your camels as well, that will be the correct lady, the right lady for the son of my master. And Hashem immediately answers his prayer, and Rivka appears, Rivka or Rebecca, Rivka, we will call her Rivka, appears near the well, and she passes this test with flying colors. Not only she offers Elizar water, but she waters all the camels and basically invites Elizar to her home. Now, Elizar knew that this is the right lady even before he conducted the test, because he could see the special qualities of young lady, because the water from the well rose up actually towards the lady. We know that nature actually, when nature feels a tzaddik or a tzaddikah, a lady who is a prophetess, nature will be more than pleased to serve that person. And that's why water actually came up to her. And Elizar noticed that, and he was naturally very well trained in those issues, so he knew that this is a very special lady. He gives very expensive jewelry to Rivka and follows her to her home. And she, when he asked her whose family she is from, it couldn't be even better, because she was daughter of Bethuel, who was Abraham's nephew. He was the son of Abraham's brother. And that's why she satisfied every possible requirement which Abraham specified to Elizar before his departure. It's interesting to see, it's not covered in the Torah, I believe, but I saw it in Midrash that Lavan, Rivka's brother, was a very special person as well, was very smart, and he was a crook already at this young age. So when he saw the jewelry and he heard the whole story that this is a guy who came over, a servant who came over from Abraham, he immediately felt that there should be wealth here. There's money, smells with money. So he went to his father Bethuel, and they suggested to both Laban and Bethuel offered food to Elizar, which one of the plates was poisoned. And because they obviously wanted the money and the wealth and the jewelry with whatever he brought with him. However, what happened is one of the angels came down and mixed up the plates. And this is why in the first few verses we still see the name of Bethuel, which is Rivka's father, and then his name disappears from the whole story. Why? Because he passed away. He basically, Migat Keneged Migat. He wanted to poison Elizar, and he got poisoned himself. Well, and this is when, after that, they negotiate, obviously, Rivka's departure, and she goes together with Elizar back to Canaan, to the land of Canaan, and not far away, before they actually enter the place, she can see a person coming from the desert, and that was Yitzhak, her future husband. And he was praying in the desert. And when she asked Elizar, who is that? And Elizar explained to her that this is the son of my master, your future husband. She obviously came down from the camels and met Isaac. And it was, as what we call today, love from first sight. And they loved each other. And Isaac married Rivka. And he loved her and comforted her. And she comforted basically him for the loss of his mother. What is the story associated with that? We know that while Sarah was alive, 3 miracles were taking place. Miracle 1, when she would bake challah for Shabbos, for Shabbat, it would stay fresh all week. Miracle 2, the candles she would light for Shabbos evening would be a light and wouldn't extinguish all week, for the whole week. And most important, there was a cloud above her tent, which was a sign of Hashem's presence, of the Shekhinah presence around her all the time. When Sarah passed away, all of those miracles disappeared. And now, with Rivka's arrival and marriage to Isaac, all of the miracles came back. So Isaac knew immediately that even from spiritual point of view, this was the right lady, despite her beauty and despite her very nice personality. Isaac realized that his father is alone, he's an elderly man, and so what he does is he makes peace with Ishmael. And Isaac finds out that Abraham is looking for a wife, because a tzaddik, actually it's one of the laws that a tzaddik cannot be widower. He must remarry, he must have a wife. So Isaac goes to Ishmael and they rekindle their brotherly relationship. And he convinces Hagar to go back to Abraham, and Abraham marries her. It happened so that Abraham was that powerful and that young in his physical capabilities, despite his age, that he fathered another 6 sons with Hagar. And the Parsha finishes basically with the fact that Abraham is 175 years old and is buried beside Sarah in the cave, Machpelah cave, by his 2 oldest sons, Ishmael and Isaac, together. Now, and that's basically the whole short version, the content of this Parsha. Looking a little bit deeper, this Parsha contains one of the most serene, one of the most pleasant descriptions of old age and dying anywhere in Torah. And this is what it says word for word. I will try to read exactly what it says. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at the good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. Genesis 25:8. And then there is an earlier verse, which is even more poetic, I think. Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and God had blessed Abraham with everything. I must admit, for the 2 of them, first, Rashi was actually very puzzled by the fact that about Sarah's passing away, the Torah says the following: Sarah lived to be 127 years old, and these were the years of Sarah's life. Why there is duplication? The last phrase seems to be duplication of the previous phrase. It's superfluous. Why not just say that Sarah lived to the age of 127? That's it. Well, what is added by saying these were the years of Sarah's life? What does it add to the whole description of the story or meaning of it? After long deliberation, Rashi actually finally came to a conclusion that the first statement, Sarah lived to be 127, is simply a statement of duration of Sarah's life, and these were years of Sarah's life. It basically alludes that all these years she lived, and all of them were equal in goodness. he is talking. He says the Torah is talking about the goodness of her life and the years. Well, I just said a few seconds ago that Abraham passed away in very serenely and in old age, and God has blessed Abraham with everything, and Sarah had very good years all her life. That somehow, I'm sorry, but this doesn't make sense. Because look at their life. Let's look at their life. Was it really that peaceful and that nice and that wonderful? I don't think so. I don't think so. How is it that Abraham were commanded initially by Hashem to leave everything which was familiar to them, and to leave their land, to leave their home and their family, all their ties and everything, and travel to an unknown land which Hashem will tell them later on where they're going. And as soon as they arrive to the first sort of destination, a famine breaks out and they are forced to go to Egypt. And then twice Abraham's life is threatened because of beauty of Sarah's beauty, and they not only they driven into exile, but they forced basically to lie that they are the brother and sister, and his life is spared because of this. Otherwise, he would be killed immediately, either by the Egyptians or the Philistines later on. Because first Pharaoh wants Sarah to be part of his harem, and then Abimelech wants her to be part of his harem. And so that's not a very nice situation. And then the whole situation of not very pleasant for Sarah to be part of Pharaoh's or Abimelech's harem. It's not where she belongs. Not very nice experience in life, but that even goes into it's nothing in comparison to the long and very emotional wait for a child. And it was even more painful because of the repeated promises by divine promises that they will have many children, as many as stars in the sky or dust of the earth. Right? And then came the drama of birth of Ishmael, where Sarah finally decides that she cannot bear children, and so Hagar will bring a child to this world for Abraham, a son. Eventually, as we all know, it has aggravated the whole relationship between Sarah and Hagar, and eventually she was told to go away together with Ishmael, and Ishmael survived, and it was a source of pain for all four people, for Abraham, for Sarah, for Hagar, and for Ishmael. It wasn't a nice experience at all for anybody. Now remember, we're discussing that Abraham and Sarah had a very nice life, both of them, right? Not the case so far. And then there is this ongoing desire for a child, and finally, at the age of 100 for Abraham and at the age of 90 for Sarah, they brought to this world Isaac, this precious son. And then what happens? Abraham suddenly faces with the prospect, right, sure, by that time Isaac was 37 years old, but Akedah took place when Isaac was already 37, but nevertheless, Abraham basically is forced by the word of Hashem, yes, to seriously consider that he must sacrifice his own precious son. And obviously the effect it had on Sarah, we all know. I just said that she passed away as a consequence of the whole affair. So we can see that neither Abraham or Sarah had an easy life. Their lives were lives of consistent trial in which their faith was tested at many points. And how can Rashi say that all Sarah's years were equals in goodness? And how can Torah say that Abraham has been blessed with everything? All right, I think I confused you enough. And this is the way, by the way, this is the way Talmud teaches everybody when you read Talmud. First, it gives you all the logic why the answer to this particular question is wrong, why the whole situation is wrong. And when you totally convinced that this is the correct answer, it shows you why this answer is incorrect. So what I just said to you, that their life was very full of trials and tribulations and heartbreak and difficulties, that's all true. But did they pass away serenely, contented with their life, happy with what they have achieved? And the answer is given in that parsha itself. It is very unexpected, as a matter of fact. Let's look at it together. 7 times Abraham has been promised the land. And here is just one of those promises. The Lord said to Abraham, after Lot had parted from him, "Raise your eyes, and from the place where you are now standing, look to the north, look to the south, to the east and to the west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you." Yet, by the time Sarah passed away, died, Abraham did not have even a single piece of land to bury his dear wife. And he didn't have enough land even to have a burial place. And he was basically forced to prostrate himself in front of the Hittites and beg for permission to acquire even a single field with the cave of Machpelah from them. And eventually he buys it for a very, very inflated price, 400 silver shekels, as we said earlier. This doesn't sound like a fulfillment of the promise of all the land, north, south, east, and west. Nah. And then let's look in the relation to the children. In relation to the children, Abraham is promised 4 times. I will make you into a great nation. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth. And God took Abraham outside and looked at the sky and told him to count the stars. See if you can count them. Then he said to him, this is how numerous your descendants will be. And then he says, no longer shall you be called Abram. Your name shall become Abraham. For I have set you up as a father of many nations. It means many children. And despite all of this, they had to wait for many, many years until a single son was brought to this life by Sarah. Whether we think of children or whether we think of the land, the 2 key divine promises to Abraham and Sarah, the reality fell very short of what they might have felt to be entitled or should expect for all their mitzvot and good deeds they have done through their life and all the tests which they have passed. Abraham had every reason to sit and grieve when Sarah passed away. And he did. But as far as the Torah is concerned, this is how Torah describes it in very short few words. In one of the most extraordinary sequences of words in Torah. In Hebrew, it's actually described in 5 words. In English, it sounds a little bit longer. There are a few more. And Abraham came to mourn Sarah and to weep for her. And then immediately after this phrase, we read, and Abraham rose from his grief. And from that moment onwards, he engages himself in a flurry of activity. First, he negotiates with the Hittites the purchase of the cave of Machpelah. Let's look at this. They offer him to have a burial place as a present. Free, you choose wherever you want to bury your dear wife, and we will be happy with that because we respect you very much. You are the king of God. And they respected Abraham a lot, but that was not good enough for Abraham. Why? Because he wanted to be confident that, first of all, a transaction took place, and it means that the place really belongs to him. So if he pays money and there is a contractual arrangement in front of all people, witnesses, as it should be, then he feels confident that the place of burial of his dear wife and his future burial, as well as his family in the future, Isaac and Rachel buried there, and obviously Abraham knew that Adam and Hava are buried there, and he knew basically that in the future Yaakov and Leah will be buried there as well. Right? Now, see, he wanted to be absolutely sure that this place belongs to him, and there is no way that somebody can say, I changed my mind and this is no longer your place. Those of us who went through immigration and know the situation where you coming to a strange country, nothing belongs to you, the first thing you really want is to buy a place of your own. You want something to belong to you, and that is what is really gives you a sense of belonging and sense of that you putting your roots down here. With Abraham it was different. He wasn't supposed to put roots amongst Hittites, but he wanted a piece of land, of future land of Israel, to belong to him, and at least to have one field with one cave. That was good enough. It was a step forward. Now, his other activity, children. So what he does immediately, he basically sends Eliezer to get a wife for Isaac. So he addresses exactly the divine blessings. He addresses the promised land. So he buys the first piece of land with a cave on it, which belongs to him, and he arranges for future generations for marriage of Isaac. What does it tell us? What do we learn from this? What we learn from this is that Abraham did not wait for God to act. He understood one of the most fundamental, profound truths of Judaism, that God is waiting for us to act. And after we act, He will be with us, help us, and guide us to achieve what we set to achieve. So what I'm saying that one field and a cave for Abraham was enough for the text to say that God had blessed Abraham with everything. It was enough for him. And one child, Isaac, to be married and with children, because if you do a simple calculation, Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Isaac was 60 years old, Torah tells us so, when Jacob and Esau were born. So it means Abraham was 160 years old by that time. And Abraham passed away at the age of 175. That means that Yaakov and Esau, or Jacob and Esau, were 15 years old. So Abraham knew his grandsons very well. They were 15 years old boys. So Abraham, from that point of view, that there will be future generations of his who will take up his philosophy and his way of life and his level of understanding, he could die in peace. And he could see already that I'm not so sure about Esau, but at least Yaakov was well on the way learning Torah and studying, and under Isaac's guidance. A great Chinese philosopher and sage said one interesting phrase. His name was Lao Tzu. He said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And that is true. Judaism adds to it. It is not for you to complete the work, but neither you can desist from it. It says in Pirkei Avot, actually, Pasuk 2:16. God himself said to Abraham, "For I have chosen him so that he will direct," God himself said of Abraham, about Abraham, "For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and what is just, so that Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." And he did. The meaning of this is clear. If you ensure that your children will continue to live for what you have lived for, then you have the faith that they will continue your journey until eventually they reach the right destination. Even for those of us whose today, for instance, whose children do not look like continuing your journey and do not look like they will continue studying Torah and learning Judaism, I'm sure one day my children and my grandchildren will probably find a way there. Abraham did not need to see all the land in Jewish hands, nor did he needed to see lots of Jewish people around him. He had taken the first step. He had begun the task, and he knew that his descendants would continue it. He was able to die serenely because he had faith, and God and faith that others would complete what he had begun. To be happy, it does not mean that you have everything you want or everything you were promised. It means simply that you have done what you wanted to do, what you were called to do. To have made a beginning. If you made a beginning and then you have passed on the baton to the next generation and the next generation, whichever way. In Berachot, it says, "The righteous, even in death, are regarded as though they are still alive, because the righteous leave a living trace in those who come after them." That was enough for Abraham and Sarah, and that must be enough for us. It's definitely enough for me. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing those YouTube videos. Whoever learns, at least if one person in this world learns something from my videos, I think I have completed my task. Have a nice day. Goodbye. I will see you next time.